tapping into your own resilience, you know? Like, what do you do to get there? You know, I mean, one of the things that I think that a yoga practice does is allow you different avenues of tapping in to what it is that actually might be called, without content, the foundation or the source of resilience, right? So I think that that's one of those questions, like, what are you exploring when you practice yoga? What are you, of course you learn how to do poses and stuff, you know, stuff, but you're also finding other dimensions, right? And I think that so I don't know. So one of the reasons why I was a little bit tardy this morning is I've been dealing with and on hold with, does anyone love, especially if you get around in a wheelchair, does anyone love dealing with medical supply companies? Isn't it like the worst thing ever in the freaking universe? And it's not even exactly their fault, except when it is their fault, you know? Like, you know, like I'm in the middle of something that took over a year and they dropped the ball and all of a sudden they're dropping all this new stuff on me today for the appointment later today. And it's like, you know, I'm trying to go, what's the best way to, like, do I advocate? I'm beyond frustrated, you know? So it's one of those times where you go, what is it now? Like, how can I use my yoga here? But like, sometimes you just got to deny it and keep smiling, right? Like, what is the resilience that is required of why you have a disability? Where does it come from? Like, you know, and there isn't exactly someone to blame. I don't know if the last like year, I've had an amazingly difficult time traversing the health insurance and medical system, the combination here in the United States. It's very complicated, and it takes a level. Anyone that's had anything big happen, even the medical bills and all this stuff, is just a disaster, right? I mean, it's just like, it's beyond belief. And so, you know, at some point, denial is really functional. It's kind of like, keep smiling because you don't have the energy to get mad at everyone all the time, right? Right. And then you think, well, am I accepting to, you know, like all these places, like if my mind tries to figure them all out, I'm never going to figure them out. And if my mind tries to figure them out, I'm not going to be tapping into my resilience. A good attitude is not the source of resilience. A good attitude maybe gets you access to a version of dimension in you that allows you to sustain and work through stuff. And so that's kind of the beginning question, you know, if you know, yeah, sure. You have such a good attitude. It's, you know, how many times have any of you heard that from people? And they don't know that actually, you know, when they're not seeing it, you're howling at the moon, right? You got all sorts of different parts of you that are like, and then there's the outside part and the inside part. And it's not like you're constantly, because most of the time you're okay on the inside. So again, I ask again, how do you tap into your resilience? To the source. And some of you, I think, are lucky enough to have a faith in God that helps you tap in. That's one of a doorway, you know, and it's not that I don't have it in an organized way. It's a great thing about organized religion. It's an organized methodology to access what might be underneath, right? And a comforting way to access it, you know, and that's great. I'm never gonna assail anyone's access to the fact that there's more resource here, right? I just don't like some of the price of admission, some of the belief systems I'm supposed to absorb in or accept and actually believe in order to get access, right? I find that also true about how yoga is presented a lot. Like, it's getting more and more a little bit, it means this, it means that. You know, that's why I keep telling you over and over again, being with all of you, is that if anyone opens up the dimension, helps you open the dimension of yourself and tells you what to believe, be highly suspicious, right? Like, don't, that's for you, right? That's that dimension. And human history is a competition for that part of human consciousness, right? Institutions vie for it. Everyone's vying for it. Everyone's taking a chunk on it, right? Then you hear something like a line I love from the Bhagavad Gita is, I remember where I was sitting. I was in a parking lot in Pismo Beach, California, waiting for who I was with, looking at a book I never read completely, mostly because the lines were so intense. I've been pondering them since I was 25. But it was a line in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, only the work is your privilege, right? The expectation that it's not supposed to be ongoing, that there's supposed to be a destination, right, is part of what eventually yogis and yogic philosophy and Bhagavad Gita is trying to say. That's part of the source of suffering. Doesn't mean you're supposed to accept the fact that I've been absolutely hosed over by this medical supply company for over a year, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. Right? And then to have the creme de la creme today was like, wow, holy cow, you guys really suck. So but we have tons of examples of this. So as you sit up straight and tall right now, and you start to feel more rather than less, what I love about asana, what I love about yoga, when I separate from the philosophy and all stuff, is that there's a curriculum being handed down that helps me access a dimension that I have access to. And one of the reasons why I study asana and try to realize this through asana, but there's a lot of ways to do it, is that it tries to eventually help that dimension express itself through movement and action. And it doesn't require anything for me really to believe anything. That's why I really like that I get to start to feel near the hub of my own wheel. Right, but that doesn't mean that I'm alone there. I'm connected there. So again, feel your feet on the floor and your sitting bones. Create the legs of the stool to help support, which I now believe the part of my manifestation that has the most life energy come through it, my spine. Right, you get to choose if you think it's all in your head. I don't know, in your brain. I don't think so. I think it came second, but that's a debate for another day, right? Brain came second on the spine, right? So then you allow that there's an opening and a spaciousness here, despite all the grinding your mind's been doing, all the work your mind's been doing. There's a freedom here. I don't know about you, but I'm in a lot of physical pain these last couple months. And it's like, but even still, there's a place in me that I can feel is not defined by what those pains are. So when it seems vulnerable, but when I soften my organs of perception on the temples, the skin of my face, the inside of my mouth, the jaw, relax my belly to relax the throat. Even though I can hear on that radar that there are places that hurt, my upper right abdomen, my shoulders tweaking, my wrist is sore, right? Even though all those are there, and my mind wants to stay with the parts that hurt, there's another resource. And I do think it precedes. That's up to you to discover. I hope you practice enough to discover that what you're centering into precedes the story of your mind. Balance your head over your neck. I love that my yoga teacher showed me that even the slightest lift of my chest transforms my experience. She didn't tell me to believe it. She let me discover it, showed me how to lift my chest, asked me to pay attention, decide for myself that I could smile on the underside of my collarbones, that the smile on the front side of my body could be supported by broadening the space between the shoulder blades, opening the back ribs so my smile can be facing forward and facing backward. What the hell? I think it's awesome. And that when I do that, the definition of my sitting bones changes. The clarity of them. Then when I get that, then the rise happens differently. Then if I extend down from the inner groin to the inner knee, down to the inner heel, I can make the experience even fuller. There, I have a tendency to overuse my will and block some of the truth. So I have to be careful not to let my will jump in too fast, the beginning of violence. There's an overall balance on the inside that's always accessible to me, that my body doesn't create, but actually plugs into so my mind can hear it. Yes, that's a big nod. Where's your resilience? However you access this place, honor it. In the lightness and the grounding of this place, be grateful. That's not going to hurt anybody. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do the other. Good, and then release, and then take your sternum up towards your chin, and your chin down over your sternum to clarify the bones of your spine and rib cage. To let there be an even more focused center core. So that when the breath comes into each nostril and into each lung, we can feel each sitting bone and feel each foot, especially the inner edge of the heels. And there can be a corridor that amplifies your receiving if you practice it enough. Raise your head up with closed eyes. open your eyes. So the one thing about that Bonda is that when I do it, I have a hard time not overwilling it because I don't quite have the balance to do it easily. So like I'm popping around a little bit because in trying to access what that gives, that position can give you in terms of access to energy, I tend to get a little too focused. So right now I'm bopping around a little bit in my chair. I'm remembering the lightness of it. Eventually, maybe in year 50 of my yoga practice, I'll be able to access that energy and maintain all the freedom and lightness in my body. But I can tell that I need to move around. So some of you aren't moving around. What the hell? Right? Move around. Because you want to get this sensation of lightness, which you know is part of your resiliency, right? You want it to be part of your focus. You don't want to sacrifice it in order to focus. The world's going to tell you to sacrifice in order to focus. It's going to ask you to narrow to focus. So I'm leaning forward. Why? Because you and I both know that I can't get over the fact that my low back needs to lengthen in order for me to find access. I think this is why dog pose is such an important pose for a traditional student. You want the relationship between your legs and your spine to elongate. So I'm taking a few breaths. I'm hitting down through my sitting bones and I'm lifting into my collarbones. Wonder why he does that. Find out for yourself, right? Discover what it is for you. Right, good. And then back up. Again, I want to stay fluid because I have to watch getting overly intense today. Inhale, take your arm up. Exhale, revolve. Because I don't want to bite someone's head off today because who doesn't deserve it? Right? So I'm dealing with myself right now. Right? Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. One of my favorite lines I ever heard, and I haven't heard that many, and then back to center, from Thich Nhat Hanh. Everyone has the right to get angry. No one has the right not to transform it. Right? And generally, he will say, understanding what's motivating, what's happening will bring compassion. Except when it doesn't. Sometimes it's just human failure. Good, and then come on. But then you can understand that, right? All right, so I'm back and I'm moving again. And then take one arm over and get those intercostal muscles in your ribs, right? And then create the base underneath it. Somebody I know mountain biking this weekend took a huge digger on their mountain bike and broke 9 ribs, right? And dislocated his shoulder and likely broke his collarbone. He's having, and collapsed a lung, right? So he's having a hard time breathing, right? And so he's got to figure out how to breathe. So I'm moving around again and I'm waking up. So I thought of him when I just opened my intercostal muscles because right now his body's in shock, I'm sure. And he's afraid of his intercostal muscles, right? And then there's ways to breathe. So have you noticed some days you wake up and in order to gain your own resilience, you have to take in your day on an exhalation? Like kind of you prepare. Okay, here we go. And then some days you can take in your day on an inhalation. Right? And some days when you start noticing you're taking in your day on an exhalation, you could actually just switch it because you practice yoga and take it in on an inhalation rather than exhalation. And then you've accessed more of your resilience. That's interesting, right? It's one of the things I got from my yoga practice is that I can switch it up. And I'm going back over my chair and forward because if I get frustrated today, which is likely, right? Navigating today, right? If I get frustrated, I'll actually lose my sense of space and be more likely to get angry in a way that's not productive, right? So I'm watching, right? So now I'm going to lean forward because right there, this is when you get to lead your own practice. So I want you all to practice yourself. You get to start doing the things that actually feel good, right? So I'm coming forward. And so now you're with me as I'm actually navigating my day today with my yoga practice, right? But there's wisdom here for you. So I'm coming forward and I'm getting this sense of grounded earth, twisting dynamic, and lifted chest. Because like that feels good. So I'm gonna come back to center. I'm gonna go forward the other way and put my arm on my knee, on my bone, because I want the bone connection to hit my thigh, my humerus, right? Not my humerus, my oh my god, thigh bone. Let's just leave it there. Femur bone, right? I'm grabbing my other knee, right? And I'm getting a firm grounding. I'm visiting headstand by doing that. I'm lifting my chest and I'm revolving and adding a twist. What? Yep. What about this illusion quick to headstand? What are you talking about, Willis? Yeah, all the poses are hanging right around me, right? So what are you talking about? So come forward again if you can. Put your forearms on your hands, if not on your armrest. Just get these bones activated, right? These bones activated, however you do it. What do you mean to activate a bone? I don't know what I mean. Just freaking do it, right? Make a point of reference. Open the center of your chest. Feel your sitting bones and receive. Activate your bones. Right? So I'm doing this. I've got this kind of base that actually could be headstand. Right? Now, like whatever connection you can make between your hands, do it. If you interlock your fingers, great. If you can't, okay, right? But any kind of, and all that, and it's okay if you don't have it, right? But when you can close the circuit, it helps your mind think it's doing something. So the difference between if I can't get my hands together, even though I'm grounded here, if I can't get my hands together, I have to have more faith that I can close the circuit without contact. Okay, now that's harder for my mind to believe. So I'm gonna give it a break. I'm gonna actually close the circuit, right? But I'm actually probably becoming a better yogi over time if I have to learn to close the circuit without touching. So this is the type of thing like Sammy as a student, you've seen, some of you have seen her, the high level quadriplegic, is one of the best yoga students I've ever seen because she actually has to close the circuit without being able to move. Right. So like I'm going to try, and by the way, so when I try to close the circuit, now I'm having fun without actually touching my hands together. I actually get more subtle body activation. I'm basically feeling stoned right now because wow, something's going on. But I'm going to close the circuit. Right, because I can, and then my mind gets something to do rather than have to just receive. So remember, we taught a whole class where, or I did this, for those of you that can do it, I'm pushing the web of my fingers together, right? So right now we're doing headstand, right? And we're doing it early in the class rather than near the end, right? Because it's a wake up, get to know you pose today, right? So I'm making the webs go together. So what I want, if you can't make contact with your hand, I want you to bring your arms together in a way that makes you feel the midline of your spine, right? So whatever that is, that's why Sammy's such a good yogi, right? She's gonna have to do it without the contact, without calling it imagination. right? But I'm going to push the web into my hands and be grateful for a body, access to a body, right? And so when that happens, something happens to my shoulder blade, something freezes, but I got to make sure it keeps active. So I'm going to bring the fingers together and drop my wrists down. So like not have my, so I want this to go this way as my fingers are going together. Please notice that when you do both those actions at once, something freaking changes in your body. And then release. So my mind, being slow to the party, is trying to figure this shit out, right? So I'm going to do it again because repetition, my mind's so dull, it takes repetition, right? So I'm doing it again. I'm bringing the web of my fingers together. I'm dropping my wrist down, the sides of my wrist down. And then, this one's really hard for me to do. So, but maybe it's easy for you. I doubt it. I'm trying to broaden now across the meat of my forearm right here. So I'm trying to do 3 things at once. Webs together, wrist down, broaden the meat on my forearm. When I do all 3 and can sustain it, and my mind can barely do it all 3 at once, right? I want to take a picture of what I feel in my body. Good, and then release. So whether you get any mileage out of all 3, pick the first 2. If you don't get the 3rd one, that you might have to practice that a lot, right? To get the 3rd one to be dynamic. So that's why you practice, right? So I'm going to do the first 2 webs together. Well, I'm going to do the 3rd one. You do if you can only, and if you can't do the fingers together, then try to drop the wrists. And if you cannot, pick one of the 3, 2 of the 3 if you can, and then 3 of the 3. So what I want to do now is as I'm webs together, wrists down, broaden across the forearm, that actually makes me lift my chest without me trying, right? But now I'm going to lift my chest more actively, right? So I'm going to do the 3 things and lift my chest. And I'm leaning forward now. So I'm going to elongate my sitting bones in the opposite direction. So I'm going to hit down through my sitting bones and stretch out to the top of my head. Oh, that seems like so much. My mind is overwhelmed. Well, that's why you practice. Good, and then release. That's why you practice, everybody. So when you come up into headstand as a traditional student, this is going to seem so stupid, but it's so simply obvious. When they're coming forward and they're coming up into it, have you noticed their legs come into the pose last? Right? So they come down on their head, they kick up, and it's the legs are the last part of it, right? And the legs come up over. So they're upside down on their head, but their legs come into sync last. Why would you think it'd be any different when you're doing it in a chair? Your legs are going to have to come last. What the hell? I'm going to try it again. Now I'm getting kind of happy. I don't know about you. It's like, don't get overwhelmed. It's like, holy cow, this was all waiting for me. Right? Here we go. Boom. Wrists, forearms, chest. Hit down through the sitting bone. Stretch out to the top of the head. Now, elongate from the in. Keep the sitting bones planted. Make sure your finger webs are going together so your inner edge of your shoulder blades are acting. Now, find your sitting bones. Now, extend from the inner groin to the inner knee down to the inner heel. Oh my God, get in your whole body. Your legs, although they're going down, they're going up. And it's your head is extending, your neck is staying long, because if you crunch your neck and headstand, you're going to lose your legs and they're going to become dead weight. You don't want your legs as dead weight. Activate your legs. Good, and then release. Holy cow. What I like is people are like knowing right away, you guys must be listening. You come out of that pose and you start wanting to move, right? You're starting to go like, wait, holy cow, I just narrowed the universe down into one little pose. I want to make sure that I stay in more pose, in more space. Absolutely, because more space is coming into every pose. You're not just a drop in the ocean. You're the ocean in a drop, right? Your resilience is deep, right? You just have to remember your mind keeps getting caught in the outer layer. Try it again. Oh, one more time. Remember, focus is one of the limbs. Concentration is one of the limbs. So we're trying to get it so there's full body focus coming in service of a happening. That's all asana is, right? Full body focus coming, including mind and body, full consciousness focus coming into a happening. That's what an asana is, right? I love that it includes the body. I'm glad that's one of them. Fingers together, boom, midline. I start that now because I've done it a few times, right? Today. Drop the wrist, broaden the forearms. There goes my chest. Hit down through the sitting bones. Shoulder blades moving down and broadening as my head goes this way. And I do this action to find my legs. So I'm going to start it again. Well, how is that even possible? I don't freaking know. I just know it's here. Why? Because I'm practicing. Here I go again. Fingers together, wrist down, broaden the forearm, lift the chest, drop the shoulders, elongate the head, find the sitting bones, activate the legs. Shirsasana. Breathe. Holy cow. Now find balance. Remember, Shirsasana is a balancing pose. Good, and then release. Taking a little break. Having a sip of coffee. Oh, heaven forbid. You should be more rigid than that and more pure. No, actually, I needed a break. That was pretty focused for me. This is the advantage of practicing on your own, right? You get to be in charge of your pace. It's a huge thing. God, I wish people would get it more. You practice for yourself, right? Not to prove anything. Inhale, take down. Exhale, revolve. Go behind you. Oh, I'm just gonna get some happiness here. I'm not gonna try to win the twist. I'm gonna dynamically turn, open between the shoulder blades, find my sitting bone so I can feel the hint, activate my legs because I can feel Shirsasana right? Headstand. And I'm bringing it to the twist. I'm learning how to not just twist and come back to center. I'm learning how to not just twist this way and crank it. I'm learning to activate Shirsasana in order to get my chest to lift, right? Oh my God, is that why Shirsasana could be the king of all yoga poses? Because it's in every one? But wait, I thought Tadasana was. Yeah, so, and then I'm going the other way, but let me talk for a second. So before you do it, so nowhere does Iyengar say that Shirsasana is in every pose, okay? But he does say Tadasana is in every pose. Tadasana is in Shirsasana, right? And the ability to activate, when you're in a chair, yoga poses tend to always activate up because you're struggling, right? What I learned the hard way is that you have to be activating down while you're going up, right? Which is harder when your legs are paralyzed. But that's also the levels of which you have to be activating down are shockingly taught best upside down. Because it shows you how to activate up, which is actually down through your legs, but you're doing it up. Right? So what we're doing in this twist is activating. Take your arm up, go off to the side. You're trying to activate. So Tadasana is going to make you rise up. Shirsasana is going to make you see the opposite of Tadasana, and it's going to make you learn how to go down. So here I am, right? Twisting what seems like a simple twist. Now I get to activate even another flavor, which is the dynamic turn of my spine. right? But I'm going to find the corridor of Shirsasana from my head down to my legs. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. As I find the down corridor, can anyone lift on their collarbones better? Yes. It's an earned action. Good. And then come on back to center. The king of all yoga poses, they say. Interesting. So I've been making, if you can't tell in my teachings the last few, I'm coming forward again because I'm in the transitional dog pose because my mind is blown right now. Right. So I'm in the transition of getting my bearings in dog pose. So I'm leaning forward and I'm like, as you can tell, I've had some breakthroughs in Shirsasana while sitting. And you're getting a download of them, right? And that Shirsasana and from going from head back down to my feet is a skill I need to practice. Because when I get frustrated and lose my resilience, I go up from my feet to my head and get more potentially angry. Because when energy goes this way only, you're going to lose grounding. So I'm breathing. One thing I hope I'm going to try to start exploring more is Sarvangasana, shoulder stand. So you're going to be, and I've been doing it for a while, come on back. But so let me give you a quick, and I'm moving a little bit, give you a quick little history of my practice. The most important pose I did, I only could do 4 in the beginning because my rod slipped. If you read Waking, you know this stuff. Right, the most important poses I did in the beginning, I think, were passive chest openings. Right, so I'm moving back and forth here, by the way. So I'm like, as I'm talking, I'm staying moving. So when I start talking too much for you in a class, keep moving. Right, like it's okay. I'm not going to be offended, and it's okay if you don't. But so I did passive chest openings because having my spine supported with my chest open, right, was the beginning of the queen of all yoga poses, Sarvangasana, shoulder stand. Now it tends to be having your chest open with support tends to be a really restorative dynamic in asana, right? So that's cool, right? That makes sense, right? So, but it can also become more active. So the queen of all yoga poses, Sarvangasana, has a restorative component to it, right? And I didn't know it, but I was accessing that line over a bolster as much as I did. It wasn't just supporting my fatigue. I was opening perhaps the most important door in yoga, the nourishing door. All right. So what's interesting is the bandha that we started centering in, Jadhara Bandha, right? Right at the end of the centering, right? We said is, for me at least, pretty willful, but it's the cornerstone of how the earth is channeled in Sarvangasana, in shoulder stand. Because you're up, if you haven't seen the pose, you're up on you're going upside down, your chest is super lifted, your hands are in your back, and your chin is dropped. And that's supposed to take the nourishment of the earth and bring it skyward, right? And supposedly, it's a very nourishing pose, right? When you do it long enough. And I trust other yogis to tell me that, right? So what's interesting about this bandha when you do it sitting up is it seems very willful. So, but remember, this is the cornerstone of what opens the door to channeling the earth skyward, right? So everyone lift your chest and drop your chin. So in doing this, make it active, but try to receive. So don't let your will get too far into it. Lift your sternum, drop your chin. And this is what you should be doing in centering, right? And this will be the core of pranayama too, right? The activation of the will, the dropping of the chin in humility, right? As a method of disciplined receiving and channeling. So this is going to be the cornerstone of the queen of all yoga poses. And then release. You're trying to create, so I know I'm going a little fast, right? And probably making some of you yawn, right? But in shoulder stand, when you're up on your shoulders, you're supposed to have C7, the very base of your neck is not supposed to be on the ground. It's supposed to be lifted. If you let it compress there, the pose is going to get super heavy and hurt your neck. Okay. So kind of makes sense though, right? Because you're trying to create the legs of the stool so the energy can come through you. Right? So this place on the base of your neck. So when you lift your sternum, that's to prepare your shoulder blades. When you drop your chin, think of C7, right? The very bottom of your neck. Don't drop your chin by pushing that out behind you. Right? So if I were in your space right now, I'd come and put my finger right on the base of your neck at C7 and I'd push it forward. And you know what happened? You'd get a rush through your whole body. Prana, the subtle body would go, wait, you mean I don't have to toil there? I don't have to grind in that spot? Correct. And then release. So we're going to do it again. So I tend to grind at C7 when I do Jadahara Bandha. The beginning part of shoulder stand. So I'm going to try to create from the sense of centering in the beginning of class. I'm going to lift my sternum, drop my chin, and let lightness come into the base of my neck. Right? And breathe. Good. And then release your neck. And so if you've ever seen, you probably haven't had the privilege of seeing this, but you might have. In it could be in any yoga class that really knows how to teach shoulder stand. By the way, in Iyengar yoga, they don't want you to do shoulder stand on the floor. They want you to be up on blankets because they don't want your neck compressing. But often they'll take rolled up ace bandages and they'll put them on each side of your spine so you get a lift right there. Right? And that's to transform the lightness in the pose from one vertebrae. So if you can, try to touch the base of your neck. Right? And if you can't, like if you're gay, have faith. Let that lighten right there. Okay? Okay, so keep, for those of you that can touch there, keep that aware. I'm rubbing on my own skin right there, so my brain gets a tactile sensation on my skin. I'm going to keep that impression. I'm going to lift my sternum and drop my chin. And keep the memory of me touching on that spot. Okay, I think I'm being successful because I'm wanting to smile. I can feel it. Another dimension's been accessed. I know to smile when more of me comes online. I hope you do too. Breathe. Okay. So remember, you're trying to channel the earth skyward in shoulder stand, right? So now So I used to always get caught in all the drama of the action because I'm fused here, right? And I've had rods in my back. So opening my chest is really hard, especially this space. So I know that a good shoulder stand, this space is really open, right? So I'm gonna take one hand if I can. I'm doing the claw, you know, the thing that the state bear that picks things up out of the thing to pick up the teddy bear. I'm making the claw right there. And I'm trying to activate this spot. So as I roll my shoulder back, I'm pushing the claw into that space, and then I'm spreading my fingers apart. So I'm trying to open here and drop my chin a little. Oh, so that's what those damn non-disabled yogis that are awake are getting. Right? I'm gonna do it on the other side. Right? I'm gonna claw. I'm gonna open. I'm gonna lift my chest. Anyone notice you're kind of in a twist? What the hell? Right? Okay. Drop my chin. Huh. And then release. Then I'm gonna lean back in my chair. And I'm gonna remember that this must be important. So I'm putting my own thumbs into my own side ribs. I'm pushing in. And I'm gonna open my chest and I'm gonna drop my chin, even though my gravity's all screwed up. Good, and then release. Whew. Well, that's taking my breath away because that's my diaphragm moving in a way I don't usually move it. Okay. So all the beginning yogis think that it's all about opening here. It's about receiving the opening. So take one hand behind your back, right? Remember last week we're pushing the back of the hand into your ribs if you can, right? So as soon as I do that, push my own spine forward, which the hands on the back of the rib cage are happening for a traditional Sarvangasana. I want to feel my legs, right? So as I bring my spine forward through to receive more of the help of gravity, right? I want to feel my legs. And then from feeling my legs, I want to open and extend from the center of my sternum up to my shoulder tip, right? So I'm coming forward and I'm using everything. And I'm catching this by dropping my shoulder blade down and in towards my tailbone. What? So when I let it roll forward, I lose my tailbone. When I push my ribs in other words, touch my spine, drop my shoulder blade and tuck it under, I'm trying to find my tailbone and then my legs. Good, and then release. Remember, shoulder stand channels the earth skyward, right? Take the other side. So I'm pushing him, so I'm coming into better alignment with gravity by pushing my own spine forward, right? I'm taking that and I'm trying to make sure my shoulder blade doesn't waste it, right? So I tuck my shoulder under, which would be what lifting your sternum and dropping your chin is doing, right? And then I'm extending from here to here while my spine is getting supported. And then I'm gonna drop my chin a little bit and go like, whoa, that's what they're doing. Good, and then release. And this is the queen of all yoga poses. This is supposed to be nourishing. Yeah, if you practice it enough, for God's sakes. Now I'm going to take both of my hands behind me, and I'm going to not go all the way behind me because I can't balance and do that. I'm going to take my hands and put them on the inside edge of my wheels and use my wheelchair, my chair back, to actually help me lift my chest. Right? So in this position, because I'm behind gravity, I'm glad you guys aren't all paralyzed in your abdomen because it really throws off gravity, right? And I can't just use my will to compensate. I've got to know that the earth is nourishing, right? It's not something to win over, right? So I'm trying to open and drop my chin and breathe. And then I'm going to release and come out of it because there's so much energy. It's doing stuff to my diaphragm, all sorts of stuff. So I'm trying to make sure I honor it because it's hard. So I'm moving around again because I know I'm about to work hard in a small space, right? I know that's about to happen. So I'm making sure I stay big so I don't get violent in a small space because I want to honor the earth, right? Okay, take my hands behind me, right? So now I'm trying to figure out how to open. And I want you to practice before you drop your chin. I want you to open and do this opening the shoulders back. And I want you to hit down through your sitting bones. Remember, the earth is going skyward. And then I'm going to release. And then I'm going to open, pull my shoulders back, find my sitting bones, and go then from the inner groin to the inner knee. I'm going to keep it with my head up at first, because damn, this is hard. Not just physically hard, it's hard to stay full, because I want to grind. Good, and then release. I'm gonna need to take my arms out, because that's hard on me. So I'm going to take a couple of recovery breaths, because this affects my diaphragm. I need to honor my diaphragm. And this might not be as extreme for you because you're not fused in your upper back. So I don't know what's going on with you, but I know to honor my own pose, my own constitution, right? Because I practice. When you find resilience, you don't squeeze it, right? You find it and learn to inhabit it and let it become congruent. You try to become congruent with it. I know from prior yogis that I'm tapping into a great center of nourishment in shoulder stand. I need not to squeeze it, because my mind's going to want to squeeze. Right? So I'm coming into the pose again. Right? I'm getting it open. I'm trusting the yogis that this is going to be worth it. I can tell I got to be careful here, because I could injure myself here. I could blow my energetic circuits because of my fusion. That's not for you. That's for me. Right? So I'm going to open. I'm going to pull it back. I'm going to hit down through the sitting bones so I get more upright. Right? I'm going to hit down from the inner groin to the inner knee. And then I'm going to drop my chin. Softly. Slowly. Because I am taking in a larger dose of prana in this pose. Of course, there are places I'm straining. I'm going to try to honor them and not strain as much, because I'm trying to receive in this pose. Down from my lifted chest, down to my feet. I'm channeling. Good, and then I have to release. Stay if you want to, but I was beginning to work my shoulder too much. I'm gonna have to watch that today. So I'm stretching out my arms. Maybe that would feel good to you. I'm letting them shake a little bit, because I started to feel it tweak in there. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come forward now. I'm gonna let that focused energy start to dissipate, right? So the earth takes lower entropy, more focused energy, lower entropy energy from the sun, processes it and dissipates it into this outer space around the earth, right? So the earth is just a conduit of the energy it receives. So are you, right? You're a conduit, right? So I'm letting it kind of like drip and drop before I go into Shavasana. I'm trying to make sure I'm grounding, allowing, finding the space in here again, right? Doing some stuff so this Shavasana isn't too abrupt. Couple of breaths. Good, and then find some symmetry so you're a better receiver of the emptiness in the receiving part of shoulder stand, right? And then let your chair hold you up. Let it in. Let the world touch you and hold you up. Soften around the temples, the jaw inside of your mouth. Get your mind out of the way to be a better receiver. There's a hum, maybe. Don't know if that's the right word for you, but something starts to come as a whole. I call it hum. Let it touch you like water in the dry soil. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Every interaction between you and the world comes through your body. No matter what else you believe. Start to bring yourself back again. Deeper inhalation, longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. Close them again if it's too bright. And then choose to open because it's the best alternative. Right? All right, everybody. That was not what I expected. Hands together. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you.